For Primetime Local News, we're speaking on SGI's August traffic spotlight results for Saskatchewan drivers. And joining us once again is Tyler McMurtry. Thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us. Now, what's the top issue law enforcement noticed for last month?
Well, every month when law enforcement reports back on the results of the previous month, of course, speeding is the most common offense that occurs when it comes to traffic offenses in Saskatchewan. And last month was no different. Speeding and aggressive driving offenses totaled nearly 5,500 in the province of Saskatchewan over the course of the month. But that wasn't the only issue police were dealing with. They also reported on impaired offenses, seatbelt offenses, and distracted driving offenses as well. And so for impaired offenses, we saw 418 impaired driving offenses, which includes 312 criminal code charges. For distracted driving, there were 799 total distracted driving offenses. And of course, most of those have to do with your cell phone. So 683 cell phone charges. And then for seatbelt and car seat offenses, we saw 411 of those.
Now, were the results from August worse than last year's, would you say?
Not in terms of speeding. It was actually lower than the last 3 years that we've seen. For impaired driving, it's kind of what we've come to expect every year. Every month, we typically see between 300 and 450 impaired driving offenses. So August was pretty comparable. We saw a lower number of seatbelt offenses, which is good, but still, when you're talking about 411 seatbelt offenses in the year 2021, that's still way too high. And the distracted driving numbers are significantly higher than last year, but lower than the previous 2 years. So we do see some fluctuation when it comes to those numbers as well.
From seeing these results, has it given SGI anything different they'd want to focus on in the future to remind drivers about?
Well, one of the things that we were focusing on last month, the traffic safety spotlight for August, was rural roads, and particularly talking about some of the challenges when it comes to driving on grid roads. Now, the numbers we're reporting today, those are for all road systems, including paved highways, city streets, that sort of thing as well. But when we're talking about impairment on rural roads, one of the things that we highlighted last month was that half of the fatalities that happen on rural roads involve impairment. Now, that's a higher proportion than what we see with traffic fatalities in general, but half of the fatalities on rural roads, in particular grid roads, involve impairment. And the other interesting fact about that is that almost all of those impaired driving fatalities on rural roads are single vehicle rollovers.
And now I know we're already over the halfway point here in September, but what exactly was the plan for September that SGI wanted to focus on?
Well, it's a good thing we're talking about impairment, because that is the traffic safety spotlight for the month of September. Particularly, we're looking at young adults. With September, it's back to school, not only for the little kids, but for the big kids too. So for those young adults who might be attending university or college, we thought this was a good opportunity to talk to them about impaired driving. And the reason for that is because, when you attend university or college, or maybe you're just starting your career or moving out of your parents' house in that young adult phase of your life, you're going to have new opportunities, new friends, new chances to socialize with people. And that's all well and good. People should absolutely take advantage of those opportunities, but they should also make a plan for a safe ride home. And the reason we want to talk specifically to young adults about that kind of thing is because, unfortunately, people in the 18 to 25 year age group are they're overrepresented when it comes to impaired driving collisions. They represent about 12% of the drivers on Saskatchewan roads, but they also are involved in 32% of all impaired driving collisions. So for new drivers, particularly ones that may be still in that novice phase, whether novice 1 or novice 2, they do have additional restrictions when it comes to impaired driving. Particularly, there is zero tolerance for any alcohol or drugs in your system. Now, older, experienced drivers are able to, have a glass of wine with dinner, and as long as they don't exceed 0.04, they're not going to face any consequences. But for the younger drivers, so anybody who's 21 and under, or anybody of any age who is in that novice or learner phase of their driving journey, is they're not allowed to have any impairing substances in their system whatsoever. It's zero tolerance, and if you violate that, you're getting your vehicle impounded for 3 days, your license suspended for 60 days for a first offense.
Perfect. Well, once again, thank you so much for joining us today, Tyler.
Absolutely. Thanks, Shelby.